Rain-slicked streets reflected the city lights like shattered mirrors, and Amara Johnson's heels clicked hurriedly against the pavement. She wasn't expecting trouble tonight, just the usual late shift at the cafe, but danger has a way of finding those who least anticipate it. A sudden shove sent her sprawling, her cheek scraping against the concrete. Pain flared, sharp and immediate. From the shadows, a harsh voice cut through the chaos. "Who did that to your face?" Amara looked up to see a man standing over her, tall, impeccably dressed, with an intensity in his eyes that made her stomach twist. There was something dangerous about him, but also a protective edge that made her pause. He extended a hand, not aggressively but firmly, and she hesitated before taking it. "Stay still," he commanded, scanning the empty street. She couldn't tell if it was concern or control in his tone, and a shiver ran down her spine. In minutes, he had her seated in the back of a sleek black car, the engine purring softly. He drove without a word, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Amara's fear slowly gave way to curiosity. Who was this man? And why did it feel like she could trust him, even as the rain pelted the windshield like warning bullets? Finally he spoke, his voice softer now. "You shouldn't walk alone at night." She swallowed, embarrassed and grateful. I usually don't," she replied. He glanced at her, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good. Let's get you somewhere safe." As the city blurred past, Amara allowed herself a small, tentative hug, a gesture of thanks, but also the beginning of something neither of them could yet name. Little did she know this night would change everything. The private clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and fresh linens, a stark contrast to the chaos of the streets outside. Amara sat on a crisp white chair, her cheek tender, still burning from the night's attack. Jinsoo Park stood nearby, his expression unreadable but watchful, every movement precise. "You'll be fine," he said, though it wasn't just reassurance in his voice. It carried authority, control, and something deeper she couldn't name. Amara studied him. Who was this man stepping out of the shadows to protect a stranger, yet somehow making her feel seen? The nurse attended to her with gentle hands, and Jinsoo remained close, silent but present. She noticed how carefully he observed her, noting the smallest flinch, the faintest wince. It was unnerving but not unpleasant. When the nurse left, Jinsoo finally spoke again, softer this time. "You shouldn't have been out there alone." Amara hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I usually am," she admitted, voice low. "But not anymore, I guess." He nodded, almost imperceptibly, as though that small truth mattered more than she could understand. A silence fell between them, charged yet comfortable. Then, almost instinctively, Amara leaned forward and gave him a quick hug. A simple act of gratitude, fleeting but sincere. Jinsoo's posture relaxed just a fraction, and he responded with the faintest squeeze. No words, no promises, just a shared moment that felt heavier than it should, carrying the weight of unspoken understanding. By the time she left the clinic, night had given way to early morning light, and Amara's thoughts were tangled. Who was Jinsoo? Why did she feel safe in his presence when the city had already betrayed her once tonight? She didn't know it yet, but the thread connecting them had just begun. Amara hadn't expected the world Jinsoo Park inhabited. It wasn't just the sleek black cars or the towering buildings that seemed to glimmer like they held secrets. It was the air itself, charged with power, wealth, and something dangerous she couldn't yet name. He led her through a private entrance into his office, a room lined with books, expensive art, and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. The lights from the skyline reflected in his dark eyes, and for a moment, Amara felt small, ordinary, but not unwelcome. "You don't belong in this world," he said quietly, almost to himself, then looked at her with a faint edge of curiosity. "Yet somehow, you do." Amara chuckled softly, trying to shake off the nerves. "I don't even know this world exists," she admitted. "I'm just me." Jinsoo's lips curved into the faintest smile, rare and fleeting. Sometimes, being yourself is the most dangerous, and the most refreshing, thing someone can be. There was a pause, a quiet that wasn't empty. Amara felt her chest tighten, not from fear this time, but from the strange, magnetic pull between them. She took a careful step closer, daring a small gesture. A hug. Quick, unassuming, yet full of trust and gratitude. Jinsoo didn't stiffen. He allowed it, hands resting lightly on her shoulders, steady and grounding. In that embrace, Amara felt the first tangible connection to a man whose life seemed untouchable, untamed, and impossible to understand. And yet, here she was, finding comfort in him, even as the glittering world around them seemed to pulse with hidden danger. As she pulled back, he gave a slight nod, acknowledging something unspoken. Something had shifted. She didn't know how or why, but she knew this world, and this man, would change her life forever. Amara hadn't expected to witness what she saw that evening. Jinsoo Park had led her through a side corridor of his office building, insisting it was just to see the view, but the moment they turned a corner she stumbled upon a meeting she wasn't meant to see. Men in sharp suits spoke in hushed tones, papers shuffled, tension thick enough to taste. Her heart raced and she stepped back, trying not to draw attention. Jinsoo, sensing her fear before she could even speak, appeared beside her silently. His presence was calm, but his eyes were sharp, alert. One look from him and the world outside that corridor, chaos, danger, threat, was somehow under control. "Stay close," he whispered. The words weren't just instruction, they were a promise, a shield. Amara nodded, clutching her bag tightly, her pulse still loud in her ears. Later, in the quiet of his office, he finally spoke. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said softly, not with anger but with concern. "Some things are better kept hidden." Amara's chest tightened. "I wasn't trying to. Her words faltered. She wasn't used to being involved in someone else's dangerous world. He approached, his presence steadying her. "I know." And then, almost instinctively, she hugged him. A tight, instinctual hug that carried relief, fear and gratitude all at once. Jinsoo didn't pull away. Instead, he held her, letting the moment linger longer than it needed to, a silent reassurance that she was safe for now. As she left that night, the city lights reflecting off the rain-slicked streets, Amara felt the first undeniable truth. She was entangled in Jinsoo's life, and her heart had begun to anchor itself to his, no matter how dangerous his world might be. Amara had never imagined attending a charity gala in a gown she didn't pick herself, let alone with someone like Jinsoo Park. The city's elite swirled around them, champagne glasses clinking, laughter floating through the grand hall. She felt out of place, small, ordinary, but when Jinsoo offered his arm, steady and grounding, she felt safe. "This isn't your world," he murmured softly as if reading her thoughts. "But you carry yourself differently than anyone else here. That's remarkable." Amara smiled, unsure whether to be flattered or embarrassed. She leaned into him slightly as they walked, a simple, natural gesture that didn't go unnoticed. His presence was commanding yet gentle, an unspoken promise of protection in the midst of chaos. Throughout the evening, she noticed him watching her, not with scrutiny but with curiosity and admiration. Jinsoo, usually so composed, seemed almost relaxed around her. And she, usually guarded and wary, found herself laughing at his quiet wit, teasing him just slightly, marveling at how easily the walls around her heart began to crumble. Later, away from the glittering crowd, they found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The wind tugged gently at Amara's hair and she shivered, not from cold but from the closeness between them. Without thinking, she hugged him, letting herself lean into the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart grounding her. He didn't pull away. Instead, he rested his chin lightly on her head, letting the hug linger longer than politeness required. In that silent embrace, Amara realized how much trust had grown in such a short time, how safety and connection could feel so intense in the space of a single moment. As the gala lights sparkled behind them, one truth was undeniable. Their bond was deepening and neither could ignore it any longer. The next few days carried a quiet unease. Amara noticed the subtle looks, the faint whispers, and the way some people in Jinsoo Park's world lingered a little too long when he was near. She had stepped into his life, a world of power and influence, and not everyone welcomed an outsider, even one as courageous and genuine as her. One afternoon, Jinsoo called her to meet him in his office. The tension in the air was almost tangible. He looked at her, dark eyes flicking with an emotion she hadn't seen before, jealousy, though he would never admit it aloud. "Amara," he said quietly, "there are people who watch too closely, who don't understand why you're here." She felt a flutter of unease. "Why me?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. He stepped closer, bridging the space between caution and connection. "Because you're different," he admitted. His voice, low and sincere, carried weight. "You aren't afraid of what you don't understand. You're honest." Amara's chest tightened. She had never expected someone like Jinsoo to see her for who she was. Almost without thinking, she hugged him. It was a tight, unguarded embrace, a way of showing trust, reassurance and affection all at once. Jinsoo didn't hesitate. His arms wrapped around her firmly, his shoulder a safe anchor in the storm of his world. In that silent moment, the noise of his dangerous life faded. It was just the two of them, trust, warmth, and a bond neither of them could yet define fully. As she pulled back, Amara realized something important. She wasn't just surviving in his world, she was becoming part of it. And Jinsoo, for all his control and power, was letting her in. Amara had always believed she knew a person once she spent enough time with them. But Jinsoo Park was a puzzle wrapped in shadows, and the pieces were slowly revealing themselves. That evening, as the city lights glimmered against the rain-soaked streets, he led her to a private room in his penthouse, far removed from the world below. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice unusually heavy. Amara sensed the weight behind his words before he spoke again. "I'm not who you think I am." Her pulse quickened, and her gaze searched his face for clues. "What do you mean?" Jinsoo exhaled slowly. "I am involved in things, dangerous things. Things that could put you at risk if you don't understand." Amara's mind raced. She had suspected, but hearing it confirmed brought a pang of fear. And yet, amidst that fear, there was a flicker of admiration. He trusted her enough to share the truth. "I don't care what you do," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "I care about you. That's what matters." Jinsoo's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, and he closed the gap between them. Without a word, he pulled her into a long, enveloping hug. No distractions, no explanations, just two hearts finding solace in the midst of uncertainty. For a moment, the dangers of his life didn't matter. The threats, the secrets, the power, they all melted away into the quiet comfort of that embrace. When they finally pulled apart, Amara met his gaze. "I trust you," she said simply. And in that trust, Jinsoo found something he hadn't expected. Peace, even if only for a fleeting moment. The bond between them had shifted. It was no longer curiosity or fascination. It was something stronger, something neither could ignore. The city had grown colder, darker, as if echoing the danger creeping closer to Amara. Someone from Jinsoo Park's past had returned, and the air was thick with tension. Every shadow seemed heavier, every passerby a potential threat. Amara felt it before she even saw it, the subtle shift in Jinsoo's mood, the sharpness in his gaze that warned of trouble. "Stay close," he instructed, his tone calm but firm. She obeyed instinctively, the weight of his presence both intimidating and reassuring. He moved through the streets with the precision of someone who had faced danger countless times, every step measured, every glance alert. Amara's heart raced. She wanted to be brave, but fear gnawed at her edges. And then he looked at her, that steady, unwavering gaze, and she felt a flicker of courage. She wasn't alone. Later, in the quiet of his penthouse, Jinsoo finally allowed himself a moment to exhale. He pulled her close, arms wrapping around her in a firm, protective hug. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his steady heartbeat. "No one will hurt you," he whispered, though the unspoken words carried more weight than any promise. Amara clung to him, finding comfort in the embrace, a safe harbor in the storm of his world. For a long moment, they simply held each other, letting the world and its dangers fade away. It wasn't romance in the flashy sense, no grand gestures, no whispered confessions, but it was intimacy in its truest form. Trust, presence, and the unspoken promise of protection. When they finally pulled apart, Amara realized something undeniable. Danger could loom outside, but within that hug she had found something stronger, the unshakable bond between her and Jinsoo. The city was quiet that night, the hum of traffic and distant sirens a soft backdrop to the storm of emotions inside Jinsoo Park's penthouse. Amara stood by the window, gazing at the twinkling lights, her thoughts tangled between fear, trust, and something far more tender. Jinsoo approached slowly, his dark eyes catching hers in the dim glow. "Amara?" His voice was low, hesitant, as if even he feared the weight of the words he was about to say. She turned to him, heart racing. "Yes. I care about you. More than I expected. More than I should," he admitted, every word deliberate, weighted with sincerity. Amara's breath caught. She had felt it too, the pull, the connection, but hearing it aloud from him made her chest ache. I care about you too," she whispered, stepping closer. He didn't hesitate. Arms wrapped around her, pulling her into a long, encompassing hug. It was a hug that said everything: trust, affection, longing, and relief all at once. Her head rested against his chest, and she could feel his heartbeat, steady and grounding, a rhythm that matched her own. In that embrace, nothing else existed. The dangers, the secrets, the world outside, they all vanished. It was just the two of them, tethered by something undeniable, unspoken, and deep. When they finally pulled back slightly, Jinsoo rested his forehead against hers. Whatever comes next, he murmured, we face it together. Amara smiled softly, the tension easing from her shoulders. Together, she echoed. For the first time the future didn't feel scary. It felt possible. The city sparkled beneath them as Amara and Jinsoo stepped out onto the balcony of his penthouse, the night air cool against their skin. After weeks of tension, danger, and uncertainty, the world outside seemed calmer, softer, almost inviting. Do you ever think about what life could have been without all this? Amara asked quietly, her fingers brushing against his. Jinsoo glanced at her, a small, rare smile tugging at his lips. I try not to, he admitted. But then I remember. I wouldn't have met you. And that makes everything worth it. Her chest tightened, and before either of them could overthink, she stepped forward, letting herself be enveloped in a warm, protective hug. Jinsoo's arms wrapped around her, steady and sure, holding her like he would never let go. The embrace carried everything they had shared: fear, trust, laughter, and a love that had grown slowly, quietly, yet irresistibly. They stood there for a long moment, letting the world fade, letting the city's lights reflect the new beginning they had built together. Amara rested her head against his shoulder, and Jinsoo's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally, a silent promise of commitment. I don't need the world to be safe, she whispered, as long as I have you. Jinsoo pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her head. And you always will, he murmured. In that simple moment, danger, secrets, and uncertainty didn't matter. Their bond had survived every challenge, and now, in each other's arms, they had found forever. As they pulled back, hands still joined, their smiles mirrored the quiet joy of two hearts choosing each other again and again. No words needed, only trust, presence, and endless hugs.